So yeah, welcome dudes. Today's an eventful day. We're going to be starting P5JS on the web. Um, I'm not even going to go into a lot of code lingo with you guys. Going to be very friendly first approach here, so you guys don't get spooked, so to speak. I'm assuming probably roughly half of you um, will have had coded before with like DMS 110. Um, or any other kind of programming class. However, this class we're going to start from the bare bones basic. If you have coded before, I ask that you continue sort of where you left off, so to speak. Um, Not that my demands are going to be at that, but for your own sense of learning, it's better to continue on rather than restart, right? Like why do something that you've already done? Keep up with those skills. So today we're going to go over a lecture. It's probably, to be fair, it probably needs tweaked and updated, but I'll ramble on through it. That should only take us like 20 minutes or so. And then I've got some interactive examples to at least prime you with. I won't go through all of them, but the whole moral of this is to get you starting thinking about what approach you might take for your interactive project. And I know that the project 3 is due next class. It's due by midnight on Wednesday. That being said, I do ask that you guys get started with this reading before next class. Obviously, your project it takes precedence. I'm not grading you or anything for reading this, but it is quote unquote a required reading, and this is going to help you better, swallow the terminology and like what this P5 is and how it can be beneficial. And just to give you the quick rundown, anybody that in the past who have had, come time like final couple weeks of class, everybody's crunching. I'll have students that are just completely, they come to me out of nowhere. They don't know what they're doing. They're struggling. They're in a bad spot. And I kind of backtrack and I'm like, okay, well, have you done this? Have you done this? Pretty much everybody always that I talk to in that boat doesn't do the reading. So if you feel like you're in that kind of boat where you're going to tell yourself you can't code, if you get into that mindset, oh, I can't code, just like read this couple of chapters. It's super easy to read, and it primes you with everything you need to know. So I quite literally think this is like the easiest way to start coding. If anybody has a different idea, totally you can email me. But so this book here, I have it. It's not an expensive book. It's kind of like a walkthrough of P5 with additional kind of tutorials and such. However, there are most of all these references on the website itself, which we're going to be going over today. I think it's nice to have the book anyway. I teach it, so it's better for me to have the physical, but I scanned from the beginning up, not scanned, I took photos of my phone. It was a terrible process. And it's a pretty large file, so I couldn't just make a PDF of it on my website. It's pretty large. Yeah, if anybody knows how I can reduce this, I would just like to know. As a side tangent, I would like to know how to reduce this from a PDF. Fun fact, I already reduced it. It won't let me reduce it again. So yeah, I know, right? I don't have Adobe Acrobat Pro. You have to pay for that. Actually, I think I have it on my MacBook. I have a free version, or hacked or whatever. This is Adobe Acrobat. You guys actually get to use this with your Adobe Cloud subscription to like make PDFs and such. So I highly recommend checking that out. But this reading is pretty, it's pretty easy, and you definitely need to read it. As you can see, there's photos in here. There's some of the beginning is a little lengthy because it goes through some history. But I want you guys to bare minimum read the intro and chapters 1 and 2 this week, and then by next week have everything else read. But it goes down through and gives you like why they started and how, and goes through beginning your setup. So we're going to be doing some of this stuff today, but pairing that with reading and like at your own pace and regurgitating it, that's going to pair well, extremely well, with what I do in class, because I'm going at a pretty fast pace, and it's easy to forget things and overlook things that could be beneficial. So I put that in the drive for you guys to have. I couldn't find it online anywhere, so I spent some ample time making a PDF for you guys. I wish I could have just went into the department, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm gonna go through this lecture real quick. Once that's done, show you those examples to start getting you thinking about different ways to approach the project, not specifically like ideas for the project, but like approaches. And then we're just going to dive in and start playing around with code. And like I said, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the structure of code and all this. I'll be going in like a full depth lecture on Wednesday about the specifics. So today's just going to be like getting our feet wet, kind of playing around, seeing what everything's about. So, oh, and then I guess last reminder that if you want me to like preview your audio project or get help with that project, whether it being, you know, managing content, editing, manipulating, exporting, make sure you come to office hours. Nobody came today, so always slightly worrisome. Yeah, this is super good. I'm extremely happy I spent the time on this. Okay, lecture 4. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, I already have it open. Look at that. Fancy that. I already have it open twice. Coolio. So, yep. Like I mentioned, this is getting us kind of primed and ready for structuring our proposals. Go through kind of like the overview of what this project entails, and you know, the platform we're working in, similar to how we were working with raster images, and then we moved into vector and then audio, right? These different platforms, they have specific purposes. This realm of generative art is no exception, and in fact, it's more complex, right, than any of the previous, because we quite literally can combine all of those previous components into one platform. So it will be a pretty challenging project, but it's also going to be really fun. It's really satisfying to get things working. So generative art is kind of this like way of thinking that the program that you write is the creator, so to speak. So you have these two kind of different ways of thinking, that you're the creator, or the system that you're creating is the creator. And it all just depends on your approach too. Like if you're building an abstract piece, obviously there's going to be more of the system at play, but it really all just depends on your project. So there are a couple different subcategories here involved with generative art. We have interactive art, which literally allows the user to manipulate the system, right? Where it's designed for that user interaction. Whereas algorithmic art is specifically lacking interactive manipulation. So algorithmic art would be, like, an example of that is a screensaver on a computer, right? Where the computer is drawing something, and a lot of times, I guess those could be recordings, so to speak, but they're usually always just based on an algorithm. And key in point would be the visualizers, like on PlayStation, Xbox, what have you, that allow you to manipulate the visual as you're, as you're experiencing it in time. That would be a combination of like an interactive algorithmic piece. But once you add interactivity to it, it's no longer a strict algorithm, right? You have the ability to manipulate it. So those are the kind of two realms to be have your mind situated within. Although obviously we are creating an interactive experience to some extent. You guys can challenge me on that if you're really passionate about algorithmic art. I'm a sucker for algorithms. So in terms of these interactions, obviously the viewer has the ability to interact in the system, changing the outcome. This is what's referred to as UX design, or interaction design. And it explores like the ways in which a user gets to experience that work, right? So kind of like how video games, they have play testers to go through and try to like break the code. Those play testers are in essence like user interface quality checkers, right? They're checking to make sure that the interface is working smoothly and there's no problems with it. And in terms of the sense of a user experience with this design, since we have covered a design component now, this is probably not super accurate. This was all written up by somebody in the art department, but I kept it in this slide, in this, to show you guys just in a general sense that as you can compound different sensories experiences, you have a greater sense of remembering those experiences. So, when you think back to, one of your vacations, right? Like nobody forgets a vacation, right? Unless you do it so frequently that it's not really a big deal. But a vacation is a big deal for most people in a sense that it's a change from the everyday. And you get to hear, you get to, I guess in a sense, read things, but you get visual stimuli through seeing different things. Um, and then you get to touch things and taste things, right? And all of that accumulates to that memory of that vacation, right? It's not just like, oh, I seen a dolphin in Florida. It was the best, right? Oh, how was your vacation? Oh, I seen a dolphin. Like, oh, great. What else did you do? I don't remember, right? Like you have this sense of pairing different things together to have these different memories, and that's why this experience is, or this design experience is pretty fabulous, because you get to have this pairing happening, and you'll find that pairing different things together doesn't quite work in the ways that you think they do. It's all kind of trial and error. Through the computer, though, we get to be thinking about, if we're thinking about this interaction, and I guess not just specifically the computer, but any kind of interaction that you're doing, is in the physical, right? We're here in the analog world, back to the sense of being, um, dealing with physical things. We have these different data points that we can capture, right? Speech you would be able to pick up with a microphone, facial expression, like any of these other gestures can be picked up with a camera. You could have buttons to have like switches. And what's crazy to think about, though, is like any of those translate to code, right? Ones and zeros. What can you do with ones and zeros? You could use that code for anything. It doesn't have to be for any one specific thing. You could use that data for anything, or in combination with multiple things that are then in combination with each other. So there's like no limitation really of what you can do with when you get that data. I mean, obviously it's based on the software you have, the hardware you're playing with, but we have quite a lot of ability to play around here and modify things with this P5.js. So just kind of covering some other terms here. Multimedia is literally just combining different things. I bring this up because I find that a lot of you guys in DMS, you don't have like a required course in theory. I mean, you could let me know if I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like any specific class you go into is structured to give you the information on said theory, for that specific class only, which is, it's a little strange because that's not how I went through my undergrad. My undergrad kind of gave me the structure of all these different fields, kind of more of a traditional overview. So it is kind of a bummer in that you guys don't even get the practical historical studies of theory behind media. And I don't know if you guys want to break it down for a second. And I think I might have said this already, but media study, like if you think about it, isn't really like supposed to be just about film or just about audio or screenplay. Media study is quite literally the study of media. What types of media? All types of media, right? And like light. Light is a medium, right? What can you do with light? Why does light matter? There's no classes about light, I mean, unless you're using it in context with like film. So that's why it's pretty important if you guys are really wanting to be successful in the field of media, not specifically like these side tangents that are active in the department. Um, I'm kind of focusing more in this subject, right? This kind of interactivity realm. Uh, you want to be doing some of your own supplemental research and sticking to that. I found that a lot of my grad school work was successful only after doing my own research. And obviously, you know, grad school is grad school because it's grad school, right? Like you're there because you're at that level of understanding and commitment. But you don't need to go to grad school to learn how to research. University of Buffalo is specifically like a research institution. So, I mean, you all are here with the expectation that you should be doing some of your own research anyway. I threw in one name here, McLuhan. Um, I definitely, start looking up some different references. If you guys want some other ones, I could totally, give you ones based on your interests. Just shoot me an email, like you're interested in what, and I can give you what I have. Um, but yeah, I found, especially like as you guys get towards senior year, or if you are seniors, you want to be focusing in on something, and I find it's way more beneficial to have supplemental content to give you some you know, some information on what's happened before and how you can use that towards your benefit. So, um, yeah, that's all a side tangent, I guess, on media. I I did my graduate studies in the art department here at UB, but I did take classes in media study, and um, my focus, if I didn't already mention, my focus is on interactivity, and so that's why I've got a decent background insight on the topic. Um, and so yeah, if you guys have more insight into this realm, you could always reach out to me, ask me things. But if you are in this program with any of these aspirations towards these things I'm talking about, like um, user interface design, um, interactive installation art, right? Like creating a sonic installation in a space and you go in and experience it, or using projectors on walls, or hooking up sensors and using sensor data to do things. And this is all like study within media. Like this is the department it would be done in. It's not really structured out. Um, Me and two other faculty have been talks in developing this content area for some time. So the way in which it would happen is for enough students to reach out to the chair of the department and let them know your interests. So whether that's just a letter or you just stop by or send an email. It's funny. It's funny to think about, but literally, like if enough people, if 5 people go and say, "Oh, hey, I really want to take this class in installation art," they'd probably be willing to put a class out for installation art, right? And I could further help facilitate that. So I was actually supposed to create an intermediate course with interactivity this semester for the spring, but it was canceled. Like all supplemental courses were canceled because of COVID. But as of right now, I know that media study is like primarily focusing on film and video and some sorts of like VR, but there's no real structure for coding. So um, yeah, let me know if you're interested. I could see what we can do. It's my plug right there, dudes. But no, it really is worth talking about it for those of you that are interested. We can fashion our own reality. So this is just a quick breakdown of like how your program could be structured, how your project could be broken out. And you can either decide, oh, you know what? I want to dedicate my project to this theme and then decide how it's going to be structured. Or you could decide the structure and then develop the theme to the structure. So by structure, I mean, is it page-based or is it arranged in time? Like, is it flowing? Is it linear or non-linear, right? So we have just these different examples going through the facts. So like a regular book, obviously page-based and linear, right? You can't just skip all over the place unless it's like a choose your own adventure kind of style book, which would be like an interactive experience more so. A web browser, it's going to be nonlinear, obviously page-based, because you could go any direction you want, right? A movie, well, you know that's going to be linear, right? It's got to start from one spot and end somewhere. Time-based, it's not page-based. And then the last that combines both of the abstract here is just like doodling, right? This is just happening in whatever time you want, and there's no set coursing you take. So these different approaches could be, interesting to you. Like, you know what? I'm interested in doing the time-based and nonlinear because it's abstract and playful and goofy or whatever, right? So I bring that up because you could either think of one route and then choose the other. I'm also kind of blurbing along here. Blurbing? I like that word. Is that a word? Blurbing? Yeah, blurbing. Been watching too much Rick and Morty, I think that's what it is. Going by fast so that we can get to the coding. And some of these don't have notes. I don't know where my notes went. I got all ready for class with the coding, and then obviously the lecture is broken. Go figure. Motion as interface, just thinking about like different tools we're plugging into the computer, right, to pick up our physicality, transcribe that to data. I mean, we realistically have a mouse and keyboard, but if you guys have, I don't know, it should offer it. Processing offered it. But yeah, if you guys are interested in using a webcam, I totally suggest playing around with that. Webcams, obviously we all have keyboard and mouse to use, but we all have webcams as well. And not only can you just use a webcam for like, just track, like seeing yourself and using those pixels for something, but you could go through and utilize like motion tracking, right? Or like blob detection, where you get an object that's like, okay, track red, and it'll see this book, and it'll be able to track where the center of mass is. So it's like you can kind of take control of these other tools that other people have generated and use that towards whatever concept you're implementing. So you don't have to think about just keyboard and mouse. It could be a little bit more. Like in the past, we've played around with Xbox Connects. I have a few. The department has a couple to rent out, but I'm not even sure with the P5 if it's in there or not. Who? why create algorithmic? It's kind of, you're just exploring, right? It's not, I mean, either of them are going to be explorative, but um, yeah, I mean, you could really do like a page-based, nonlinear program, and you could have it be unexpected or serendipitous. Um, but I guess algorithmic is generally going to be um, unique to like which specific hardware you have access to. Which brings me to my last. Is this the last point? Um, no, there's one more point here, and then I'm going to bring up something important here. Interactive art, deeper understanding, blah blah blah. This is all kind of crap. Oh, phenomenology. This is a topic that I also recommend um, investigating if you are interested in spatial media, um, using having your body as a component in space, whether it be with other people's bodies, right? um, like people are controllers or whatever. Phenomenology is the study of space and its relation to your body, but also your body in relation to other space. And then kind of like that mindset of um, what each other means for each other. And when you're designing an interactive work, which you guys are all designing a system where I would assume just the one person is going to be interacting with at a time. So you're going to be designing, right, this user interface that's for one person at a time. So you have that understanding. You know what their tools are going to be, right? They have a keyboard, they have a mouse, they have potentially a webcam. But lost my train of thought. I started looking at the webcam like, oh, people are looking at me. Shoot, what was I saying? Man, I gotta have one good brain fart a day. You know what I mean? Crap. What did I say last, dudes? Somebody give me a pickup point. Is everybody else brain farting too? Are we all farting together with our brains?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of just rambling, get lost every once in a while.
Yeah, no. I know it's kind of a ramble, but this is, I guess I'm trying to piece together some bits here for people that are um, wanting to continue on with this mode of working. Um, oh, I was talking about you're designing for a single user, and that's good and fine and dandy. But then there's also going to be times if you get into this realm of needing to design for multiple users, or thinking about how is that one user that has access, how is their interaction differing, or how is their interaction being manipulated based on other people that are also there in the space affecting them, right? Because as soon as you have other people watching, all of a sudden the active user is also a performer. And there's a whole other kind of like sub genre of what that can mean. So I guess why I'm bringing this all up too for you guys is like, as you're designing this, you want to think through these kinds of user scenarios right? And think of what could be fun or exciting or why, based on why you're making this. Um, and so the last thing I want to say about this realm of working is that just like myself, right? I have like firsthand experience. This field is really hard in that you have to be pretty dedicated. And I, for one, work really well with other people. And as soon as I go and I'm by myself, I have like, I get sidetracked. I don't have as much ambition. So, um, if you're going to go out and do this kind of work, you kind of have to be dedicated under the understanding that you're going to be doing a lot of grant, proposals, like trying to earn money through grants, um, because all of this type of work involves the use of computers or some kind of hardware to present the work, right? It's You have to think of like not only what you're making and why you're making, what it means and all of that, but also how you're able to present this on what devices and how is it economically feasible. you know um, if I were to go have a gallery show by myself, I have to have, how many computers do I have to have these projections and yada yada, and I have to rent them or whatever. So it's not like a canvas where you can just buy some paint. You have the ability of, you know, um, making something and then it exists in space and you can sell it as is. Media work doesn't really sell. You don't really make money off of making it unless you're contracted to do so. So, I guess I'm speaking from the arts standpoint of like making for art or making for um, some kind of creative outlook. Um, Obviously, if you're going into this field to do like game design or user interface design, anything where you're going to be collaborating with other people to, in a team or something, that's going to be pretty sweet. I just thought I'd give my perspective on like the arts side of things, because media is a different beast than traditional means. Okay, so I went over like what I was expecting you guys to read. You have the next vocab here, so you'll want to start looking that over. So I do have a few minutes. I just want to show you a few examples of kind of like different approaches of what you could be doing with interactive, um, generative kind of works. And a lot of these are beyond what you're going to have the ability to do this semester. They're just different categories. So I want to give you guys a sense of like the different realms in which you might be able to create for. So this one's an interactive website. What interactive website examples? So this would be very easy to do, right? To create something to share with anyone. Everyone already has their own hardware, right? So this would be a really awesome realm to get into making things for. This artist is really well known. He has made, dozens, if not hundreds of projects. I have a few different examples of him to show you. This one example, he made this at a coding conference. It's called Friend Fracker. This was years ago. You log in to your Facebook account and it automatically will delete between 1 and 10 of your friends. So it just finds your friends, figures out, how many it's going to do, and it just starts deleting. That was the whole thing. It doesn't tell you who it deleted. It just automatically does it. And Facebook took it down within a day or two. But he won an award for it because he made it at a conference like out of the blue. Found like a back door. That's obviously not really hacking, but it's like, advanced kind of things. But just it's kind of like thinking about, social interactions, and it's like a side spin-off of interactivity, right? I forgot this is like closing my windows. So then we have another interactive website. This one is super, super relevant. I think I might post this on my Facebook page, to be honest. So you could use your keyboard keys, and you could use the space bar. And then you just push and jump off cliff. I don't know if these numbers are accurate. I mean, they're still going up, even though I'm, maybe you guys are looking at it right now. I don't know. But you could choose different backgrounds. So it's the same premise, different backgrounds. It actually has a spin-off website as well. This one's like impeach him. There's different things, different setups. So, this is all on a website, and it's just shareable, right? This is what we're doing with P5. We can make something and share it. So this is kind of like a direct realization for you guys. Another interactive artist is this video piece. This is or another interactive piece by this artist is this video piece. And this is earlier on. What year is this? 93. But it tracks people in space, and then the video updates based on where they are in space, right? It's just like accessing a database. So still, everything has to be done at some point. These are pretty cool. These are tracking data, using data sources, and implementing that data. Daniel Rosin's pretty sweet. I'm going to show you a couple things of his. This is gone finally, huh? Bummer. That was an interactive book. Got taken down, I guess. This artist does mirrors, interactive mirrors. And this one's using a Xbox Connect to capture, it's using depth data, but also the camera to track people, and then visualize it by turning these mechanical troll dolls. However, I want to say there's more videos, obviously, of him. His normal ones are panels that move. His first ones were wooden panels, and they're just based on light. So depending on the angle at which each little piece is reflected at, you can get like pixels, right? Like a grayscale in space. And it's an interactive sculpture, right? Pretty sweet stuff. So he does some other stuff. And then there's also newer age kind of content, which this is pretty awesome to kind of research. I'm sure some of you have heard of this. This is like Google's, you might not see it very well if the clarity is not good on your end, the streaming clarity, but this is Google's Deep Dream algorithm, where it's based on the premise of you searching Google using an image, and then based on the results you get from that image search, it takes like the first, 10 or so images, and somehow weaves those 10 images together into one image, and then researches that woven image again in the Google search. And it goes on through this process. So doing this by frame, you get this like sequence of images that kind of look like faces and animal faces. It's kind of like very like hallucinogenic kind of effect happening. But this has gone on for some time. You can find a lot of examples. I think you have access somewhere. I think a student of mine has had access before in the past of playing with this. So yeah, I encourage you guys to spend time researching different interaction works. Kind of gives you ideas for like what you might be designing. So yeah, the last thing today we're going to be doing is our hour of code. And it's going to be like a kind of a demo almost, so to speak, but more so an exploration for you guys. So because we haven't went over the nitty gritty bits of like how code is structured and all this, I have to like kind of walk you through some of the bits, and I want to kind of keep it to a limitum. What the hell am I saying? A limit of what I'm going over, because I really want this day to just be like diving in, getting your feet wet, playing around, and getting a general first glimpse of like how code works and what you can start to do with the platform. Basically, we're just going to be getting shapes on screen and playing around with the shapes. So if you've used P5 before and you've already went through this process, I'd recommend just getting on and going through the reference pages and playing around with reference content, because nothing today that I go over is probably going to be news to you. So everybody just should be heading over to p5js.org to start. And we're going to have, well, I guess let me give you a quick rundown here. In the past, like if you took DMS 110, you would download the, where's the download? Libraries? No. Why am I shot right now? Download, duh, right there. I thought I looked over and I didn't see download. You would download the web editor or the editor for your computer and use that and run sketches in a window using that. We're not even going to do that. You could totally do it if you want. The whole point of switching to P5 is so you guys have access to share this. And that's through using the web editor. So once you're at this P5 site, I want you to do two things. One is to have a separate window, right? So have like two windows up, or tab if you have limited screen space and you want to be watching me or whatever. You could have a separate tab. And one tab I want you to have on the reference page. And the other tab, we're going to go to editor. And this editor, the first time you come here, it might be, might look like this. If you come here and you're not signed in, you have the ability of playing around, but you can't save anything. So the first thing we should do is just get our account set up, because this is the platform we're going to use for the rest of the semester. This way, what you do today, you can put notes in and save what you did, and then you have it for reference for later. Right? It's all saving right to the server. So up here in the top right, you can go to create an account. If you don't even want to make an account, you could actually just log in using your Google email. So you guys can have your preference, which one you'd rather do. Either way, it should only take you a minute or two. So I'll let you get going on that. Man, it stinks it's getting dark so late. No, I should say, it stinks that I wake up at the same time and it gets dark earlier. That's what really stinks. I just gotta get up earlier. I don't know if it's because I had a little bit of a cold this week or something. Needing to sleep in more or something. I will say, if anybody has an Apple Watch, you probably understand my pain here. The Apple Watch came out with an update where you could sleep track, leave your watch on at night, and tells you when you toss and turn or whatever, how much sleep you're getting. And it's cool to see that data, but then when your alarm goes off in the morning, you can just like tap your watch and it just turns it off. No snooze. And I somehow fall into that boat every time. So I had to ditch the tracking. I assume that's enough time for you guys. So I just want to cover a little bit. There's only a couple basic things you need to know about this platform here. We have our coding box here. Obviously, this is where all of our code goes. Down here at the bottom is our console. So if you want to see what's happening behind the scenes with your data, you have the access to like print stuff here. So we'll talk about that like next week. And then if you guys hit play, you should see a window pop up here, like a square. And that square is showing you your preview of your code, because all we're drawing right now is a canvas that's 400 pixels, and it has a solid background of one value, meaning it's a grayscale value from 0 to 255. So we have our code, our console, and our preview. Beyond that, there is settings. I would recommend putting high contrast on because it's easier to see what bits of code are happening. That's what I'm going to be using. You have some other information you can change in here as well under accessibility. What else? Oh, auto saved right there. Yada, yada. Two more quick things right here at the top. It automatically will create a name for your file. So by default, it's just going to be random. And for just today, I would put in here, hour of code. And this way, this is like your first sketch. So there is an auto refresh. We'll look at that in a minute. It won't matter right now. So right here where it says 220, I want you guys to go in there and delete the 22, just leave 0. So background 0. and then hit play. Right? You'll see that this goes black. We changed it from a grayscale value of 220, which was like a lighter towards a white, down to 0, meaning no color black. Okay? So you get this direct like cause and effect happening. We can change something, we can instantly see what our change did, right? So this is unlike traditional coding where you have to have a lot of stuff memorized and you have to go through this lengthy process of like organizing and, using, if you're doing HTML, like you have to use CSS style sheets, all kind of background conundrums that happen. Right here, this is pretty cut and dry. You do something, you can see it back and forth. If you can't see it and you need to know what's happening, you have your console. So I would say this is quite literally like the easiest way to learn coding. I would definitely say it's much more pleasant, less stressful. You get to play around. So the only things that I want to talk about in terms of like coding structure with you guys today is we have a couple different parameters here, and you don't really have to memorize these as of this point, but we have two different functions. One of them is setup, and one's draw, and they both start with a curly bracket and they end with a open curly bracket, right? This one starts it, this one ends it. And you can see when I click next to one of them, it highlights the other. So it's literally showing you where the end of that one starts or where the start of that one is, right? So everything in between those brackets is what's inside of that function. So setup is something that happens one time when the program runs, right? When you hit play, it's creating a canvas of these dimensions. That's all it's doing right now. Draw, on the other hand, is repeating whatever's inside of it nonstop until you hit stop. So from the time you hit play, it's repeating whatever's in between these brackets over and over. Now, because we have the same thing in there, we are not able to see a change happen. But as we get into deeper code that has this this ability that we can see things happen, you'll get a better understanding of why this could matter. So let's go ahead and get something else in here. Under our background, so if we want to click there at line 6 and hit return, right? So after background, let's put in a shape. And by this shape, we're going to be using a rectangle. So we call it with RECT. And we start it just like we would this background, right? It has a parenthesis. It automatically will put in an end parenthesis for us. We just need to put in what's in between. So for a rectangle, I'll tell you guys what we need for parameters for right now, and then we'll look it up as well. So to draw a rectangle, we need the starting location, and this is based on an XY grid. And then we need the dimensions of the rectangle. So just to make it easy, we could just do 100 for all 4 of those. And separated by commas. And then we could hit play. And we should see a white square emerge. And I, for one, just fell into my own little conundrum here. even though it still ran, it's still recommended to keep up with the proper syntax. I forgot a semicolon at the end. So, I mean, it'll obviously tell you if you mess up somewhere. The newer releases of Java, JavaScript, I guess, ignore the absence of stuff like semicolons. But so if you go in here and say change this to 0, the first parameter there, hit play, you'll notice it moves all the way over to the left. The first parameter is X. The second is Y. So if we change the Y to 0 and hit play, you'll see it starts at the top left. The origin point of this grid is the top left. 0, 0 is the top left. I really am bummed. I wish I knew why. I don't know if I've ever come across why. Like, this is based on our Cartesian grid, but like the easiest way I think about grids is back in, in high school when I used a graphing calculator. And a positive value on a graph would be the top right coordinate, right? Meaning the origin should be on the bottom left-hand corner. It's not here. So it is a little bit of a weird thing to remember, but as you go in here and you start playing around with values, even if you forget, you play around with the value, you can see where it moves to. And that brings me to my second point about like understanding what these numbers matter. Why does the program know we need them? That's why I had you guys open this reference page as well, or tab. And it literally gives you a search box here. Sometimes I like to do a Command F, like a Control F, and just search for it, like RECT. And then you see where it's at on the page. But you could just use the reference search. Just search rect. And you click it. It'll bring you to that reference page for a rectangle. It'll show you some differences. You could actually go in and edit those previews if you want. You could actually just take this code if you want and paste it in to your code and hit play. And you can have the same, it's code. You just use it. You harvest it. So it gives you a bit of information here in the description of like what this bit of code does, and then the syntax for it. So within the parentheses, we have an X value, a Y value, the width, and anything in these brackets is optional. So we have height. What's TL? I don't know. If we go down here, TL is optional radius of the top left corner. So if we ever are unknowing like what certain things are, you guys literally have the ability at just looking up the information. Right? So I want to go over a couple more things here. Does anybody have questions as of right now? So far, you should have like been able to change the background color and get a shape moving on the screen. So if you got caught up in that or having problems, like definitely want to make sure we figure that out. Everybody good? All right. So I'm going to go back to what I was before. And maybe 100s again, kind of get it in the middle here. A couple other things to note here about code is that we have ability to put spaces in wherever we want. and it won't break the code, right? Spacing is literally just for our own organization. Helps you read the code better. I will note that there is an option under Edit, which is Shift Tab to tidy your code. So, as you start working more and more, you'll want to get in that habit of tidying the code so that it's all even. Like right there, I had, an extra space here, no space there. I do Shift Tab, it levels it all out, right? Kind of creating a standard, upholding that standard. So I want you guys to return this rectangle down a couple lines so there's space above it. And we're gonna add a few attributes. Attributes. The first one is fill. And by default, yeah, we could just have, one color in there. Shift Tab. And that would change the color to a grayscale. Or, if we went to reference and we searched up fill, we could see that, yeah, we could have a grayscale number, or we could have an RGB value. So instead of just one value, we could have three. And RGB values, just like in Illustrator or Photoshop, there's 256 values per color, right? Red, green, blue, and 0 counting as the first. So 0 to 255. So if I want the color blue, it'd be 0, 0, 255. Blue square, right? And so not only should we have a fill, which has a semicolon at the end there, we also should put in a stroke so we get experience of what this is doing. And again, we could have a stroke of a single value, which in this case would be a grayscale, or again, we could have a color. So I want green. What's green? 0, 255, 20, let's say. Yeah, that's good green right there. And, this stroke's pretty thin. How could we get that stroke thicker? Well, if I go to reference and search stroke, there's an option for stroke weight right there. So I just click on stroke weight, and it literally just says, okay, I need stroke weight and then a value inside. Well, do I want to type that? Not really. I'm just going to copy it. Copy it. And I will note that all this stuff is above our rectangle. We're going to go into Y in a second. But stroke weight, I'm going to go with like 10. Let's see what 10 looks like. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So then, and I'm saying and then, not because I'm like, that dude, where's my car video? That's such an old reference. That's bad. We're gonna also create another shape. And so to find other shapes, we can go back to like the main reference page, and we can just scrub down to 2D primitives. There's a bunch of options here. So guys, I want you guys to like choose another type and build that in. And I want you to put it like, after your rectangle. So if you guys get a second shape on there, you should be able to see that the shape is automatically defaulting to the same color and same stroke. Reason being is that anytime you have these different attributes, like fill, stroke, stroke weight, these are all applying to a sort of clipboard in P5. And that attribute then carries over to any other shape that would use that attribute. So there are ways to isolate it. Like push pop might be a good one. We can talk more about that later. But just for your own reference now, if you wanted these to be different, what you could do is just copy this and paste it above your other shape, and then just change the values. Nice. So hopefully you have a couple different shapes now, and getting a sense of being able to use this reference page to start being able to utilize content to harvest and use in your own code. Because I would say probably the most important factor here with coding is having the skills to be able to go out and research your own tools needed for your project. And that's not to say I'm not going to be here to be able to help you out and figure things out, but the first go-to of trying to figure things out should be just scrubbing along the reference page, or at least searching here and seeing if it has anything relating to what you're doing. As we go along, there is a example page as well. And examples is pretty similar to the exercise page, where it shows you a live program that you get to play with, right? And then you get to go down and figure out how it's working. Obviously, some stuff is more complex than others. Like this is mapping images to shapes. Let's see. These are just curves, right? This isn't a lot. It's based on mouse movement. Oh, and mouse movement's actually the next thing we're going to cover. So in our reference page here, we just searched mouse. There are different things that we are going to be able to access for later on, like using a mouse clicked. But for now, I want us to be able to use mouse X and mouse Y. So you'll notice if we go to one of those reference pages, if you hover around in this example canvas, you'll see the line, right? It's drawing a line based on the location of X, and the value of the value of this line's X is the value of mouse X. Well, what is mouse X? Mouse X is the coordinate where your mouse pointer is. So P5 automatically understands how to track that and swap out the name for that value, right? And that's kind of getting us primed for what we're going to be covering on Wednesday, like setting up variables. So we just need to be inserting that into one of our shapes here. So instead of drawing our rectangle at 100, 100, we can literally just draw it at mouse X and mouse Y. And case is important. The case sensitivity, meaning capital, right? Mouse capital X, mouse capital Y. And if we play that, you should see that it will now follow with our cursor. There is another attribute that we could use. Cursor is actually focusing on the top left of the square, but what if you want it to be in the top or like in the center? There is another one called rect mode, and a value you can put in for that is center, and then it'll be in the center. I believe there's one called no cursor. Let's see. Yes, so I could even eliminate where my cursor is. So you go through and find different bits, and those can be helpful. Actually, I should probably leave that off for now. That might be confusing. So one thing to note here is that this shape, if you have two shapes on the screen, if you did in fact use the mouse X, mouse Y on the top shape, right? The first one we have in our list, mine's line 13. It's underneath of this other shape, right? Why is that? Because the other shape was drawn last. And the way that these programs work is whatever's drawn to canvas is drawn in the order in which it is in the code, and that basically relates to what layer it's on. So the first thing drawn is always going to be in the background. So right now, funny enough, we have background at the top of our draw. If we were to cut that and put it at the bottom of our draw, what happens? We get a blank canvas. Our objects are still there. They're being drawn under or before the black, so we can't actually ever see it, right? I'm gonna try something though. See if I can draw an alpha channel. Yeah, there we go. So with RGB values, you could actually have a fourth value, which is a transparency, and then you can have, have a transparent background. But so I also want you guys to see what happens when you put the background, if we cut this line back out again, Command X, and paste it inside of setup. And by inside, I mean before the bracket ends. So we want to return that closing bracket down and paste it inside of setup. And if you do that and you run it, you should see that the background now only is drawn one time, and your other shapes are going to continue to be drawn. So it leaves a trail. So my other question for you is, if mouse X and mouse Y is understood by P5 as a number, right? It's translating that to a numerical value of wherever the cursor is. And you're using that name in place for that number anywhere you want. Why can't you use that somewhere else that there's a number, right? So for this fill value, why not have change it by mouse Y and change this by mouse X? What does this look like? Same thing with the, let's do the stroke of mouse X. And not only that, you can do math in here. So how about I do right here where I have this green stroke on this rectangle? What if I do mouse X plus mouse Y divided by 2? Notice how I have additional parentheses in there, which do not matter because I'm still using the proper commas. It's going to do its math. It's going to be one number, right? I feel like you guys should have some questions by now. Who's got questions? Come on. Should have a dozen questions by now. Am I still live?
One thing I was thinking of as well. So you were saying kind of how you need to like reassign color value. I know it's stepping back quite a ways, but can you reset like a new function instead of drawing altogether? Like you can have multiple draw functions at once.
In what context are you thinking you need multiple draws?
I don't really know, just kind of like a separate way of setting things up. Since like there's like the setup function, there's the draw function. Like I I've done a lot of like programming and stuff like that. So like thinking if you have a second function that also draws, would that work?
It should be fine. You don't need two identical draws. The whole purpose of this is to get set up so you have a basic understanding that draw is, it's doing this thing to the canvas, right? It's repeating over time. You can use different functions. You can make your own functions. This is just set up for that kind of like easy to use, straightforward process. Yeah, I mean, you could have different functions that are also drawing, yes.
Okay. And one more thing, should the canvas size always be 400, 400, or is there like a specified canvas size you want us to use?
It does not matter. For when you're doing your project, you mean?
Yeah.
It does not matter. I actually haven't went through to experience like the maximum stuff. So let's say 4,000 by 4,000. Well, it seems to be playing. So now if I go to save and file share, if I get a full screen link, well, it seems to be doing the full thing, but you do have to scroll, which is kind of annoying, right? However, could you zoom out? Sure could. Would you be able to read everything if you're zoomed out? I don't know. So I'd probably recommend, once we get to that point, probably recommend doing like an average screen size, so that when you do share it, like it's not going to be too much of a problem. Like 1080p or something, or 4K resolution or whatever. Yeah. But less problems with the size now that we're on the web, with the ability to scale things and full screen it, than in processing. Processing was a little bit trickier. So yeah, totally. After you guys finish today, you could file save and then share this. Like, hey, grandma, look what I did today. Give me some cookies. That's what I tell my grandma. Mom, the meatloaf. Somebody else have a question? Yeah, I want you guys to spend the rest of class playing around with these parameters and experimenting a little bit with some of these other references. I want you to really specifically make sure you're grasping color, grasping the use of primitives and how to manipulate them, how mouse X, mouse Y are working, and how you could utilize, and then changing the background. How is that evolving over time or not? Well, if it's drawn in setup, it can't really be evolving over time. But if I take this, I put this at the end again, I have transparency. Yeah, now we're talking. And if I have this, mouse X, mouse Y, oh yeah, get some trippy looking stuff going on. I need this to be bigger. How about the stroke? Mouse X. Yeah. True. Oh, nice.
Beans are.
I just got a package in the mail, dudes. Wait, is this everything? Oh yeah. Okay.
What is it?
Oh, you're about to see. Ready for the apocalypse now. Oh yeah. This wasn't supposed to arrive until Friday. Now we are talking. See how it fits. I don't know. It looks kind of small. Well, that's pretty good. Medium.
So, is there any like? Do you think there's any way you can like stagger when using like stuff that references like the mouse X and mouse Y, or so, like so you know when you move the shape around and it changes? Is there a way that you know how it like makes that trail? Is there any way you can like change that in any way or any of the properties of it, or like the rate that it does it at?
The rate of the trail, or
Yeah, well, you see how it like staggers behind whenever you move it.
well, that's because I have this I have a opacity of the background color right now. So it's kind of it's a little bit to do with the rate of which it's being drawn at. So you're saying you want it to be a more seamless trail, or a more like skipped trail, or
Yeah, like any way you can like change that trail that it makes, or is that like you're kind of limited by the?
well, you can change the frame rate.
Oh,
So that changes the whole drawing, though. So frame rate. Why does it say FR? Oh, duh, FR. So frame rate, you just have to have a number in there. So I think by default it's 60, and you want to put this up in setup, I believe. Or no, this is in draw. So I guess either. You could also update it. That's why they have um, a variable there. You can update that trail. But yeah, so say if you want it to be 10, when we draw this, it'll be way skippier. Um, but yeah, you could have a variable. Like once we get into using variables, you could also have that fluctuate. Also, could probably get into stuff like jitter, judder, jump. Let's see. Color, shape, environment. Slider. I like getting into rotate too. Rotate's going to be goofy though, but it's still also worth playing with. Shearing. So any of these transform things are also worth you guys investing in, seeing how they work. So like shear, you just copy that and you slap that in here. Play. I'm going to take off this frame rate. Shear is not doing anything. There we go. It's only applying to the shape it's on, huh? So mouse X minus 100. How about shear divided by mouse X? Oh, that's no fun. Let's get some rotate going. Color, rotate. Let's see. That. Anybody have any questions? Hopefully everybody's been doodling along here. I was trying to get my rectangle spinning where my mouse cursor is, but no go. No go.
Could you tell the corners to just be redrawn wherever, but then like plus something?
I mean, you could step by step. You could do it. Probably wouldn't be. You can't really draw the corners independently unless you're doing like a quadrilateral, and you can map out every corner that way. So you could like simulate a rectangle moving, but way easier to just have like one line of, or a couple lines of code that's translating or rotating by a specific amount. I have a feeling that I need to be following directions a little bit better. That's why you go through this kind of stuff. Play around and you see where it leads you. Rotate, I believe, needs to be based on a decimal. Anywho, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully, going to be building out my processing exercise into like a P5 format, so we can follow along with that in browser. So that should be exciting. Yeah, hopefully you guys get through completing your project 3, and yeah, take a look at that reading. I would spend a couple minutes looking over that so you can stay current. So I'll see you Wednesday.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
rotate by A. Aha. We're talking. Alex or Joe, do you guys have any questions? Or are you just hanging out? Okay.